Here's a 4-step method that I use to gain alignment. When I'm working on my alignment, and I'm always working on my alignment, this is one of the many methods, but this is one of the methods that I use personally. And it's a method that I teach. And I want to share it with you. Let's first be clear on what we mean by alignment, right? Alignment's when our thoughts align with our aspirations. Alignment is when our thoughts align with our goals, with our intentions. All too often we set intentions, we make goals, we don't hit them. We don't hit them because those intentions, those goals aren't aligned with our thoughts. And I'm talking more on the subconscious thoughts than on our actual thoughts. The thoughts that we are always having, right? The thoughts the self-talk thoughts. Those are the thoughts. That's a thought. That's how we define a thought. That's self-talk. When we have that self-talk, that's the thoughts that we're talking about. Because those are the thoughts that pop up into our mind once we set an intention, once we go out there and we make a goal. That self-talk comes up and it's chatter in our mind. So what does alignment feel like? Alignment feels like you live into your core values. Alignment feels like synchronicity. It feels like the zone in the sweet spot. You've had times in your life where you're just like boom, boom, boom. Everything you touches turns to gold. You're just firing on all cylinders. That's alignment. A lot of people call it being in the zone or having the rhythm. That's alignment. It's when your thoughts say, yes, I can make sense of this intention that you set out. Let me help you go out there and get it. Subconscious does 2 things for us. The first thing it does is it keeps us safe. That's its goal. Its goal is to keep us safe so that we survive. It only cares that we survive so that the human race survives. That's on the very basic primal level. That's the job of our mind. And then it pulls from files so that it can define what safe is. It knows safe is you don't like walk off the rooftop, right? You instinctually know that. That's the primal keeping you safe. It knows that when there's a tiger over there, that tiger might want to eat you, and it keeps you safe. Nowadays, it's translated into, I don't want to see you fail. Your subconscious mind saying this. I don't want to see you fail. I don't want to see you get hurt. I don't want to see you lose anything. We go into that negative bias. Alignment, though, is when you're living from your core values. You're being true to who you actually are. You're not listening to society. And you're not listening to society tell you how you should be living. No. I don't need a big 5,000 square foot house. I'm okay with a tiny home. What's wrong with that? Right? There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to become okay with that. So that's what alignment is. It's being in the zone. It's when synchronicity happens, right? Synchronicity is all of a sudden I'm thinking about, like, I need a web developer, and all of a sudden a web developer appears. That happened to me. I needed a guy to write a website, and I met a friend of a friend, and that friend turned out to be, the friend of a friend turned out to be a web designer, a guy that works with WordPress. And I was like, how, like, I haven't seen my friend, like, all of a sudden this happens. That's synchronicity. It just happens, right? This another guy, somebody that reached out to me, said, I was down in the Bahamas and I've been thinking about how I'm going to supplement my W-2, right? Like, he wanted to kind of slow down on his W-2 and gain more passive income, and he wanted to create a business model where he could bring his kids into it. He's on vacation, and he ends up sitting next to a real estate investor, that tells them, oh yeah, you should check out this educational company that teaches about real estate. So he's in the Bahamas, and he just happens to sit next to somebody at the poolside, and they just happen to start talking about real estate. That individual mentions the group that I'm part of, right? Wheelbarrow Profits, Jake and Gino. Highly recommend them, because that's where they gave me my launch. Extremely genuine individuals. I get nothing out of telling you to go check them out, except that I get to share with you what worked for me. And if it worked for me, it could work for you. Anyway, this guy sitting next to this guy in the Bahamas, he says, oh yeah, check out this platform, Jake and Gino. These guys teach you the multifamily world, how to invest in multifamily. That individual then listens to a podcast of Jake and Gino. It turns out to be my podcast episode. He reaches out to me. We sit down, we have a long conversation, and he said to me, it's weird because I feel like that guy in the Bahamas was placed there by God himself. Like God, I've been praying a lot to God, and God placed this guy next to me. That's synchronicity. Synchronicity is when shit just falls into place and you can't really explain it. People call it coincidental. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in hard work. And through that hard work, it opens your mind up to seeing all of the opportunities that are around you, and then places you in that opportunity. If that guy wasn't open to real estate, when the Jake and Gino member that was in the Bahamas said to this individual, you should look at Jake and Gino, it would have never happened. We would have never connected. He wouldn't be on his way now to learning the multifamily real estate way. Synchronicity. So watch for all of those, take advantage of those small little opportunities. It's like the joke when not a joke, but it's a sermon. Some of the pastors tell a sermon about God, right? And this isn't a religious thing, but this proves the point. This hammers home the point. Guys on a rooftop during a flood, and the water's coming up higher and higher and higher, and the guy's praying to God to be saved. Please save me, please save me, please save me. And the guy ends up drowning, and he goes up to the pearly gates, and he says to God, God, like, what happened? Like, why didn't you save me? And God says to him, well, I sent you a boat, but you didn't get on it. Then I sent you a helicopter, and you didn't get on it. What more do you want? Because the guy's mentality was, no, God's going to come down and save me himself. So you have to be open to those opportunities around you. That's synchronicity. So what's it feel like being out of alignment? Being out of alignment feels like being on the hamster wheel. It feels like being stuck. We've all been there, and we're probably presently there now. It's almost like the hamster wheel doesn't go away. It just gets smaller. That's how I feel. I feel like the hamster wheel was really big a few years ago, and I'm running around like to do one lap around that hamster wheel. Took a lot of effort and energy, and I just felt stuck. Now that I know methods of being aligned, now that I'm open to opportunities around me, now that I'm meeting individuals and I'm gaining proximity, what that does for me is that shrinks the hamster wheel. So I'm still on a hamster wheel. I think that every facet in life, every time you level up, it's just a new hamster wheel. And I think that hamster wheel gets smaller because you learn of ways of dealing with being on the hamster wheel. So let me look here. What else did I want to touch on? So how do we get into alignment? Let's step into that, because now we're going to get into that 4-step process I was telling you about. I think alignment's about decisive action, right? It starts with making a decisive decision. This is the direction I'm moving in. Then it's looking inward. What's going on? When I literally say I'm going to move into this direction, what's happening? Like, what's happening inside of me? So I start paying attention to that. I start visualizing that goal that I have. I start visualizing me in that goal. I start visualizing me actually performing the things and taking on the behaviors that that person that already achieved the goal would do. I use the example driving a car. When I first wanted to learn how to drive a car, I wanted to be a driver. Well, I had to mimic the actions and the behaviors of a driver. I had to get into the car. I had to put the seatbelt on, put it in gear, drive down the driveway, turn signal on, make a turn, like all of that stuff. I had to do that over and over and over again. That's what the visualization process does. It puts us in that scenario so that we feel like we're there. Our subconscious mind picks up on that. And our subconscious mind starts writing notes on that, putting it in the file cabinet. I've spoken numerous times about the file cabinet. Our subconscious mind will have an experience. He writes a note. He takes that note, puts it in a folder. That folder goes into the file cabinet. And then later on, when he has to make comparisons, he goes to that file cabinet. It's our job to get into alignment. It's our job to rewrite those files. So, let's talk now about the 4 methods, the 4-step method. The first method. What's the goal? What's your aspiration? What's the intention? Set that out. Physically write it out. Say it. Say it to multiple individuals. Let everybody know what that is. That's going to trigger your subconscious. That's going to trigger those thoughts. That's going to trigger that self-talk. Listen to that. That self-talk that's what we want to do. We want to set that intention, especially when we're running this process, right? We want to set the goal of buying a multifamily property, because when we set that goal, then we know where we're going. The step before that, the step of, yes, that's all true, but the step before it, the step we have to take, there's a step in between setting the goal and achieving the goal before we even take action. And that step is listening to the thoughts that rise up to the top. So when you say, I want to invest in a multifamily property, I want to buy a multifamily property, I want to leave my W-2, I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to start exercising, I want to start running, I want to go to the gym, whatever it is, pay attention immediately. Let that statement be the trigger that you start paying attention to the chit-chatter that's going on in your head. What are the thoughts that are rising up to the top? That's your subconscious pulling from that file system. And your subconscious, right, wants to keep us safe because it wants us to survive so that we, as a human race, continue onward. That's why it's doing what it's doing. The next step after you recognize that chitter-chatter and you write those thoughts down, the next step is to ask yourself, what else is true? What's true? Is it true that if I buy a multifamily property, that it will create passive income for me? Is it true that if I buy a multifamily property, there's tax benefits to that? Is it true if I buy a multifamily property, I'm helping people live in a safe, secure community? Is it true that I'm adding value to people's lives? Is it true that maybe this person cannot afford to live in a certain school district, but they can afford to rent in that school district? So that person's better capable of taking care of their family because their family is going to be in a better school district. Whatever it may be, there are other truths that counter the chit-chat that's going off in your head. What are those truths? Start paying attention to those truths. What that's going to do now, next step, take action. Now actually go out there and take action. Start taking action. Subconscious, right? Everybody's like, go out there, you got to take massive action. Yes, I believe that. I even have it when I'm in the studio. I have it on the wall. It says think big. It's down here on my left hand side. It says think big, right? The other part of think big is start small. So it doesn't physically say that on the wall, but that's the other piece of that phrase. Think big, start small. What do I mean by that? Okay, yeah, is it possible that I go out and I buy 300 doors immediately? Yeah, I can do that. Anybody can do that. It's a little more difficult, right? Because I have to raise capital, build relationships, all of that stuff. But I can do it. But I'm thinking that's where I'm going to go. But I'm going to start small, and I'm going to learn the baby steps of that. I'm going to buy a duplex. I'm going to buy a quad. Maybe I buy a 5-plex or a 10-plex. 12 unit. I gradually work my way up so that I become comfortable. We're going to use that word comfortable. I want to be comfortable. Comfortable just means I am okay with the process, right? When I'm comfortable, I'm acting more out of autopilot. When I'm comfortable, I'm picking up those files that are in the file cabinet. I rewrote a couple of those files. Our job to get into alignment is to trick the subconscious. I call it sliding one past the goalie. We have to slide one past the goalie. So, in your intention, you set your intention, you then listen to the chitter-chatter, you ask yourself what else is true, and then you moved on to step 4, which was take action. I want you here to take a very small action. That action could be in the multifamily realm, because that's the example we started off with. That could be going to a meetup. That could be calling a friend that you know of that has a rental property and asking him, what is the true perspective of rental properties? All too often, we're listening to Uncle Bob at the barbecue saying, what do you want, toilets and tenants? Uncle Bob, how many properties do you own? You don't own any. What do you know? Uncle Bob's sitting in the corner smoking a cigarette, drinking his beers, and complaining about his Social Security check. I'm not going to take advice about real estate from somebody that's not in real estate. I'm not going to take advice from an aunt or an uncle or a parent that isn't in and actually doing the action that I'm looking to do. I'm just not. I'm going to seek out individuals that are actually doing it. And believe it or not, if real estate is your thing, you know someone that has a rental. You do. There's a lot of people that have rentals and you don't even realize it. They don't really talk about it. It's just what they do. I had a friend of mine, the guy that owns the business next to my business, and we talked for years. I never knew he had a 6-unit. Never knew it. And then it just happened to pop up in conversation one day. I'm like, oh, I have apartments myself. And we just started talking about that then. But we've known each other probably 4 or 5 years before I knew he had apartments. It's funny how that works. But go out there and take action on your intention. Start rewriting the notes that go into the file, that goes into the file cabinet that your subconscious pulls from. And the best way to do that is by small little minuscule actions that you don't even realize, your subconscious isn't going to realize that you're taking. Right? It's, I'm going to look up properties on LoopNet. Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna create a list of brokers. I'm gonna go to a meetup. I'm gonna find a Facebook group. I'm gonna ask friends if they know anybody that has a property for rent. Great way. Hey, you know anybody that has a property for rent? You know anybody that has apartments? You know anybody that rents out houses? If they're the actual individual, they'll say, oh yeah, I do. Hey, can I ask you a couple of questions? Start reading books. Just make it that casual activity. Because in that casual activity, in that it just becomes what I do during the day, it slips by the goalie. And when it slips by the goalie, you're rewriting the experience. You're rewriting that note. And then when your salient network, right, part of your brain, when your salient network has to decide on what to pay attention to, it's going to pay attention to what you've been focusing on. And you're going to slowly rewrite the story. I rewrote my story. When I was a kid, my father told me, go to work for the city, you'll never become rich, but you'll always be able to take care of your family. I took that to mean that business was bad. I have to go into public service. I went into public service. I absolutely loved my time in public service. I spent close to 25 years. If you include volunteer time, I spent close to 3 decades serving the community. And I loved every day of it. It was the best move I ever made. I was actually in alignment when I was doing that, and I didn't even realize it. But the point is, I thought business was bad. I thought business was scamming people, right? Like the dirty car salesman that we hear about, or the insurance broker that we hear about. They just want to take out money. I didn't realize words like collaboration, what that meant. I didn't realize that people were actually out there, actually cared, and really did want to add value to people's lives. And when I started seeing that, when I started putting myself in proximity to individuals that actually really did want to help, that were actually authentic, I started rewriting that file. And when I rewrote that file and I slipped it in, now the subconscious comes along and says, oh, you want to buy a multifamily property? Let's see what I have on that. And it pulls out the file and it says, I see this guy Gino. He brought a bunch of units. I see that you've been reading about how to underwrite properties. I see that you're talking to individuals. I see that you went to an event. And that all adds up. And now your subconscious is like, oh, maybe this is normal. Maybe this is okay. This is a safe way to proceed. Now, please don't take this to mean that you can't lose your shirt in real estate. I don't want you to get that idea, right? Because I know plenty of people that have either not done their due diligence, or there are a couple of people that are in tough times, actually right now, with them doing everything right. So it's not like a give me. The point is that I'm telling my salient network to pay attention to these files, because these files are who I want to become. And I'm taking the behaviors of who I want to become. Right? I'm taking those actions. And those actions become bigger and bigger and bigger. I said we start off with taking a small action, right? To sneak it past the goalie. As you level up, a small action to somebody making $10 million a year, right? He has a net worth of $10 million. His small action seems huge to me. And an action that I take is going to seem huge to somebody that's just starting out. So you're going to take a small action based on yourself. And those small actions are going to organically get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Guys, 4-step method to becoming in alignment. Set your intention. Pay attention to the chitter chatter. Then ask yourself a very, very important question. And that question is, what else is true? And then go out and take a small action. Start rewriting that file. Results over excuses, guys. Go out there today. I got to do it. Be unstoppable! Have a great day, guys. I love spending time with you. Enjoy.